Man, a lot's going on in Blacksburg. We getting close to landing the head coach. Secret jets flying by all day today, and a big Halloween party allegedly this weekend. I wasn't invited to. Anyway, as we jump into all that and more tonight on Kolby's Corner, starting here on October 29th, Wednesday, year of our Lord 2025. We'll jump into it, touch on James Franklin, all the news, all the buzz over on vtscoop.com. Definitely caught some national steam and some other headlines surrounding Virginia Tech, not only head coaching search, but also some maybe potential administrative searches going on, and get into all that. Appreciate everyone jumping in here. Appreciate all the support on the last show. I know as we get into the head coaching search, got a lot going on running across social media. So really appreciate all the support. Everyone, make sure to jump in the live chat, dump any questions we have. Make sure to try and touch on those like we did last show. We'll see how long we go. Have it allotted for like a half hour. If we go an hour, 2 hours, that's what it takes. I know people are saying things are going to go down here. They very well could. They very well couldn't. But make sure to go jump over to vtscoop.com. Check out a subscription there. Evan's done a great job keeping things updated there. Also, just a lot of the intel that we're hearing is flowing over there. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. Go subscribe to vtscoop.com. That has been a very, very active community. As we jump right into things, James Franklin, the hot name that we touched on in last show, but has become obviously even more prevalent over the coming days. It's Virginia Tech sort of circled him as a top target, and they've went in. Now, you've heard smoke around different guys, and I'll be the first to come to the table and hand up. Shane Beamer was having the talk of the town like a week ago, and are you really getting pulled by different agents, or is that just how things go? Like initially, even like I was talking, didn't look like James Franklin was going to be a viable option, just with the frameworks of everything. Brent Pry going out, obviously their relationship, what other available options and suitors, and what you were hearing even from recruits, different people close in that camp on what was going to be available. It just didn't look like Virginia Tech was going to shape up. But as you take a step back, and I think importantly, as the committee took a step back, looked at different options and sort of went through their autonomous review, I guess you could say, as Doug dropped the FOIA earlier, a lot of the signs point to it. The attractive location for James Franklin. There are some other things. Like I think the familial connection, if his hearing things about wanting some family to finish school up the road, being close to that, where else are you getting looks, which I think is really important in the process. And things could change, obviously. But obviously in the Mid-Atlantic region where he spent most of his professional career up at Penn State, even to Vanderbilt, it's a region he knows well. The Virginia DMV down into North Carolina. I think that is really big. Obviously having that and all those positives for the job. As I see in the chat, people talking about the fake account. Yeah, and through this, make sure to stay very, very locked in on where you're receiving your information. A lot of people out there posting things, and a lot of it is speculation. And like I said, there's going to be a mix, but just make sure if you click on an account, there's like 200 followers, because a lot of stuff's going to be coming out here. I think it's really important to know some of those hangups or different things that you're going to be looking at as a James Franklin type. When you look at Virginia Tech, you can talk about all the positives, the budget inflow, the athletic department restructuring that I think we'll get into a little bit. But I think first off, are you going to have your NIL in place? I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that James Franklin is going to look for when he takes a job. You can have all these things guaranteed, but making sure that you have the NIL alignment in this era is going to be very, very paramount for someone of his stature. And that's something he's going to know, because this isn't a head coach that's coming out of coaching like a Jimbo or someone who hasn't been in the game there for a little bit. Like he knows how it operates. He was just operating at a really high clip, obviously played in the national semifinal a year ago. So this is someone who's very, very well equipped to operate in that world. And honestly, what they do up there with Villagrana and all those guys at the Blue White Collective or whatever is kind of even pushing the game. So that's a very positive for whoever brings in Franklin, just for his knowledge in that aspect. I think other things to watch is obviously his agent is Jimmy Sexton. I think this is the most important thing as we get into some of these comments and just throughout the show. There's real smoke behind this. It's not like you can't even call it smoke. There's obviously a lot behind this. And the ball, I think essentially the ball is in James Franklin's court. And now it's like, yeah, it's very easy to say if James Franklin wants to be the coach at Virginia Tech, yeah, he can go be the coach at Virginia Tech. There's a lot more layers to that. As Jimmy Sexton, he's a client of his, obviously very notorious, very successful college football agent that controls a lot of the dominoes. A lot of the very prominent college football coaches are repped by Jimmy Sexton, and he knows he's been in this game a really long time. And it's a pretty simple game of leverage and being able to find the best suitors for all your clients. And right now it's October 29th. And I know people want this imminent. And, once things start to trickle out even this early, it almost seems like it should be done imminently. But it is of the best for Jimmy Sexton and his client to hold out as long as they can and allow other options to open. Now, Franklin essentially could ideally, or however he shakes out, if that is the way it goes, if he does want to take the job, sort of put the foot down and lay it out like, hey, this is what we want. But Sexton obviously is going to want to utilize all the time and see what happens on the football field and what other options open, how different things shake out, because you can always sort of leverage against that and say, well, for example, obviously the Arkansas job is open. They offered this. Will you match? And I think that's really big because the ball is definitely in their court right now. And Virginia Tech obviously has what they've sent over and taking some time to review it over there, obviously with the agency. And there's a lot of really positive momentum there. It's just the timing of it. Is it going to happen? If it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen within the next week or mid next week or somewhere in that time frame. And once you get past that, I think you're dealing with people on the committee, and especially Ryan McCarthy, Jay Pearson, and then Rakovich, the rector, but especially Ryan and Pearson, some of those people, I think they've been pretty open with Sexton that they're not willing to play those games, and you're not going to overspend or leak out some money that you're not willing to go over for. And the timeline, if you do want to sign a coach who's not coaching right now and have them jump into the fold early, I know there's already people talking about, well, you look at that Miami weekend of the 22nd for recruiting purposes. It could be really, really big. If you do want to go that route and get someone in there early, they're not going to wait for you to try and leverage and squeeze and put them in a tough spot to wait till November 8th, November 15th, or even later, if that's the way they want to go. So you've got a lot of really savvy people in the room with their hands on the wheel, obviously keeping good track of that. But I think that is the biggest thing, that the ball is definitely in James Franklin court. I think there's real smoke behind it. I think it's very obvious that the committee is weighing that, as well as obviously Jimmy Sexton and wanting to leverage off of that. And when it first initially happens, like I said, Shane Beamer a lot, and there was real action behind that as well. Like people are like, oh, that just came out of nowhere. But I mean, there was definitely a lot of real noise about that as well. Things have definitely shifted towards Franklin, but deal is definitely not done. I know a lot of people still think it's done. So, I mean, they're working through that, and it's really just in the court of Jimmy Sexton and James Franklin to get that across the finish line. And if it were to happen, I'm under the assumption, sounding like if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the next week. And if it's any later, I think they're going to pivot off and have to look at some of those other targets. I'm sure we'll get into that later in the show. But obviously they have circled in, touched on, locked in on their top target, James Franklin. And first off, we touched on it a lot in the last show, so I won't say too much, but James Franklin instantly obviously raises the floor, ceiling, whatever at Virginia Tech from where they've been. This is someone that's done at a really high level. I know all that is about the AP Top 25 record, I believe, 4-25 or whatever against AP Top 25 teams. This is someone competing in the ACC, has a clearer path to the college football playoff, and just a great job on the recruiting trail. Someone who has a lot of support, hearing from different recruits, even current players who, wherever he lands up, are willing to follow him. I think that's going to be really big. The next biggest thing with Franklin that I think we'll touch on, and, it's sort of putting whatever chicken before the eggs or however that works, is the staffing. And I think that's going to be really big. The next question, if this were to go through, like I said, a lot of this is obviously still up in the air. No decision has been made, but you can make the big hire. And I know James Franklin is obviously going to draw his name alone, massive influx of donation, a lot of hype around it just based on his name, and rightfully so. But you can have the best A-list hire. You have to back it up with a great staff, not only on the field coaching, but also support staff. I think it'll be really interesting to see how he fills out his staff. I mean, especially on the field, but also on the back end. And I think that'll be really interesting to see. But his top target, if it's going to happen, I think it's going to be sooner than later. On the back end side, obviously, his agent is dealing with the committees, specifically Ryan McCarthy, sounds like, Pearson, obviously Whit Babcock, as we touched on in the show, not involved in this process. I know there's different things going out there. Feel very confidently in our reporting that Whit Babcock is not involved. And once an announcement like this gets made, you feel pretty confident there's going to be another announcement made on the back end of some athletic movement. There's been speculation on the board sort of tied in with that. And this is sort of more loose reporting of just some things that we're hearing, fielding a lot of phone calls and texts, even as we're on live here throughout the day, hearing that they might be hosting different administrative types for different interviews. Like I said, I don't think you're going to see, I know people saying they saw James Franklin or he was on a plane today. A lot of planes coming through today, not marked down on any flight logs or anything, but just being in the area and looking up and seeing a lot of decent sized jets flying through, and then hearing smoke from different people that they might be hosting different administrative types for potential roles or however that works from different institutions. So I think that could be something else to watch as they're sort of working through this process. Now, that's a lot more speculative than what we're hearing with James Franklin, but something to watch as well. As you know, once you get the head coach in place, we've heard about all the restructuring on the athletic side, obviously with Witt not being involved with this. I think that's really big to note as there's some conflicting reports out there, but just make sure they're in on that. But an attractive location, obviously somewhere he knows well, somewhere he can pick the brain of Brent Pry, obviously, on him. Like, that's someone you're going to consult in that process. And I think the biggest thing is make sure you have your NIL in place, because that's going to be a massive stipulation in getting it. But yeah, and it's just seeing what other jobs open and how dominoes can unfold, because that's sort of the reason for wanting to get someone in the boat this early. I mean, it's not even November yet, and you're talking about wanting a head coach signed. So that's going to be really big just to see how those things unfold down the stretch. And things could definitely change, as they always change. You're on Beamer and you're hearing some different noise. But as of right now, I can say pretty confidently they've zeroed in on James Franklin. Wouldn't expect anything super imminent, but it would be sooner. And I know when you say sooner, it's like, okay, in an hour? No, probably over the next week if it were to happen. Or it sounds like they're going to shift and pivot off and not be able to be waited on or held hostage waiting for just to vet other offers and see what comes open. That they're going to try and move on with their search as proceeded. So the ball's in their court. I think that touches on that pretty well and some of the other details surrounding James Franklin. I know last show we did a massive Q&A section. I think that's going to be really big right now because that lays out a lot of the reporting of where we're at. I know people have different questions and things. So now I'll jump in the chat and try and answer some of the questions. I feel like I touched on most of what we're hearing. But yeah, appreciate everyone here. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop any questions regarding the coaching search in the chat. We'll get to those in a second. Obviously, today it's very easily overlooked that there is going to be a football game played this weekend in Lane Stadium. They dropped, obviously, the announcement of the uniforms with the new helmet going all maroon with the Halloween weekend vibe. Louisville's going to be a really tough test. It's a really, really quality football team coming in. Very, very stout defensive front. Very, very elite offense with weapons like Brown and Lacey. Miller Moss obviously playing well, distributing the football. It's a really quality football program. You look at that UVA result and it sort of turns your eyes up when you see the offensive numbers that UVA was held to, and then they had 2 defensive scores. It's kind of crazy that UVA went out of there with a win because this is a really quality team. Obviously went down to Miami, won a game, but it's going to be a really, really tough task for, I think, Virginia Tech's offensive line against that front. Will they be able to establish the run? Obviously, that's something they're going to want to lean into to win the game. As you saw against Cal, had great success running the football. Are they going to be able to do that to even a similar level against a really quality Louisville team? And then how will that defense, especially I think that secondary. Now, Thomas Williams, Isaiah Brown-Murray up to the test against Cal, a young gunslinger quarterback, but will they be able to replicate that against a very, very dynamic Louisville offense? So should be a good one. Not as cold. It's been cold here in Blacksburg, but should have some sun out there on the CW before we get into daylight savings time. So I know we talked most of the show already about the coaching search, just touch on Louisville there for a couple minutes. But yeah, want to be able to get back to everyone's questions in this time. Like I said, everyone's in here. Appreciate all the support and feedback, but want to be able to answer everyone's questions in an environment like this. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, dump some questions in the live chat. We'll go through those. We'll see how long we go. But yeah, let's get into it. Kolby, in your opinion, put a percentage on how likely VT lands at James Franklin. James Franklin. Sorry. Yeah, Andrew, appreciate it. First off, with that, like putting a percentage on it right now is like right now there's a lot of very, very positive momentum moving that way. But a lot is still to shake out. And as you've seen with the Jim Knowles situations, a lot of situations in the past for Virginia Tech, it's not done until the fat lady sings. And this is something where the ball is fully in their court, and it's a very, very competitive offer. It sounds like very, very competitive. It's just, are you going to be willing to play the game? And it's who's going to blink first? It sort of feels like these are people on both sides who have seen a lot. Obviously, Jimmy Sexton gets to the stature he does because of obviously his experience and what he knows. But obviously, these people on the committee, you're not dealing with an athletic administration type that's grown up in the industry, has graduated from a school and worked their way up and only worked in athletic departments, maybe looking at different line. These are very successful business people who, they've also called the bluffs quite a few times with different people. So I think it's really going to come down to who blinks first, what's your priorities, and how bad do you want it? Because the deal can get pushed across. It's just who's willing to not even give. Like you're going to be you're going to be still getting a premium of what Penn State was paying. You're not going to go beneath that salary. So it's just who's going to be able to make that first move. Does Sexton let it go through this early? Is it going to be later? If it's later, I don't think Virginia Tech's still in on James Franklin. So that's my take on it. Not going to put a percentage on it. Already had enough bad takes this month alone. So after Franklin, I think this is really good. I started getting some other candidates. After Franklin, you're still hearing the most chatter about Chesney or Shane. Shane is definitely, I think that's waned off. In my heart of hearts, talking with different people, obviously I had Brad Crawford on the show, talking with different people down there. It's kind of split. You have some people saying, yes, time's up. I think Shane will probably have one more year there under Donati and the AD, and they'll see what they do with him. I think he's going to have one more year. That's what it's sounding like. Some of that Shane hype has died down. I think that was maybe the reaction of the committee before they did some of their later vetting. Still a lot of smoke around Chesney. Now Chesney is also being floated to other larger jobs like a Penn State job and different offerings like that. I think there's still a lot of smoke around there and viable smoke. It's not he's outgrown the Virginia Tech job as you may be hearing other places. Hearing his name, obviously other G5 ranked names, but a lot of those prevalent names are very prevalent at other institutions as well. So I would say Chesney's still in the mix. One to watch, Manny Diaz down at Duke. I think he would be up in that grouping as well with the committee if they pivot off Franklin. Obviously, you're not really hiding anything anymore. Franklin is sort of 1A, and that's where they're at right now. And if not, I think in the next week and a half, you'll start to see that next group really start to devolve if they do have to start going that way. Appreciate all the support, having texts and calls flooding in here. So appreciate everyone jumping in here. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, dump any questions in the chat. We'll make sure to get into them. Is Evan really 4'5"? No, he is not. Bill Ross said we signed Franklin. Yeah, that was the parody account that I think a lot of people got by. So there's a lot of good Virginia Tech parody accounts going around with the different memes and things that have taken over the VT Scoop site. So if you want a good laugh, go over there. But make sure to not get got because that's no fun. Have people saying they don't want Franklin is boring offense. I think that's really big. Obviously, he's an offensive-minded guy. It's going to be really big to staff, especially that on that offensive side of the ball, I think. How you fill that out. I mean, so much of college football now is your quarterback. And if you get a guy like James Franklin, I think you feel pretty confident about keeping the guy you have in the 26 class. But what guy do you bring in at that quarterback position? No matter what the coach is, it's going to be really big. I mean, a lot of your success is determined by your quarterback, touch the ball on every play. So I think staffing, like Franklin, the name is going to be massive, massive donations, all this. People are going to get lost in it. Brent Pry, honestly, his untimely, whatever, his failure at Virginia Tech, I think, can be most closely tied to his coordinator hires. James Franklin has a much deeper tree, but it's going to be just as critical to get the right people in the room, especially in this age of college football. I think staffing is so, so, so critical. Shout out. Women's soccer playing tomorrow in Miami. Probably going to be a pretty cold one. Jimmy Sexton is laughing right now. Definitely. I mean, obviously, a lot of this comes out in certain ways by agencies. And, he's very experienced at this. This is not his first rodeo. I know you saw the Sark news with Diana Rossini and all that going around, and they came out and made that statement. All this is targeted in an approach. It's just who's going to blink first. And really, what is your priority list? Are you that locked into a spot? Are you really shopping offers? Are you really looking at Arkansas, potentially in Auburn, as places that you think you could succeed and get to your goal? Do you think you'll be given the same runway? And then having those honest conversations with your agent, because it's not just about bottom dollar at the end of the day. So he's obviously very well versed in this. A lot of this came out the way it did to obviously gain leverage. I mean, at this point, it's just sort of being honest and who's going to blink. Because I don't feel, just based on some of the intel of what we're hearing, Virginia Tech it's their top target, obviously. But I don't think, they're completely married to James Franklin in the way where it's going to be anything to get the deal pushed across. So I think they have very savvy people in that room fielding that. So that's kind of where I stand on it. The ball is in their court. I was talking about Franklin when I said that, but yeah, and he's got a really great staff there at JMU. Hitchler, man, he's going to be filling some great offers. Great defensive coordinator. Obviously, spent time as a co-DC there under Ken Womack at Alabama last year. Was with Fickle in Wisconsin, I believe, or Cincinnati or somewhere along the lines. He's seen a lot of good football, so I think he will definitely have some opportunities as well. Checking in the chat. Make sure to dump any questions or comments we have. I love Franklin. Think he'll be a perfect fit. He wants a job. It's down to his agent agreeing on one thing. Yeah, like that. It's that's what it comes down to. Obviously want the biggest commission, and there's a lot to it. Like the NIL, working through that, making sure you have the right assurances. But there's a lot to like there for both sides, and I think that's where common sense sort of you would hope prevails. But a lot of these things get to the 1 yard line and don't convert, a lot like Virginia Tech's red zone offense early in the season. So, like I said, you don't want to get too put the cart before the horse, say things are done. And I know that's all that social media wants to say, and people are saying that it's already done. There's a lot of real smoke and valuable stuff. Like very positive things are happening on both sides, but there's still definitely a little bit of a snag, and it's coming obviously driven from the agency. And you would expect that. You wouldn't be a quality agency if you didn't, run your fair share, because it's almost preposterous to think late October, early November. This is not what is typical. We're not living in a typical time. You've seen coaches fired at an alarming rate. I mean, what are the buyouts? These buyouts would be preposterous. I know Jimbo sort of reset the market a little bit, but even still, seeing Franklin and Kelly and these different people, it's almost a preposterous world to tell someone about. So you almost have to operate at a different clip. I think Franklin understands that. I think they can already sort of see the framework of if you were to come in early and how valuable that could be. It's just, can you agree? And we know how tough that is. You don't have to look far down to LSU. Like I said, it's tough to agree with bringing the governor and different people involved at different searches and things. Just tune in. Do we have any legit sources on Franklin? Yeah, I mean, like we touched on at the top of the show, if you want to go back and rewind it, he is obviously, like I said, it's really no secret at this point. Did great reporting over on vtscoop.com. The committee has honed in on him as sort of that top option, that top target. And it's just now the ball is fully in his court. They have what Virginia Tech has offered. They've had discussions about different stipulations like NIL and what's attractive about the job and some non-negotiables. And they've sort of met every requirement or whatever was laid out. And now it's just the song and dance of trying to squeeze every penny like you would in a negotiation process, especially a very lucrative process where you're going to be obviously the highest paid employee in the state. And obviously the agency is looking for their largest commission. So that's sort of where things are at. Make sure to jump over to vtscoop.com once this live stream ends here, whenever. Continuous updates on that until we meet back again here on Saturday after the game. But that's where things stand. It's sort of a little bit of a standstill. No deal is signed. I can tell you that as we're still live, no deal is signed. It's just kind of that waiting game. I would, like I'm saying, it's going to happen. If it were to happen, I know you just said you tuned in. If it's going to happen, it will be sooner. Now, sooner does not mean an hour, the end of the day, tomorrow, the end of the week. I would say within the next week, or it's likely sort of off the table. Virginia Tech's not going to be held hostage, held captive, and that's what it sounds like. It's been made pretty clear on some reporting there. So Franklin has definitely ascended to the top of the board. All eyes have been set on him. If you look around, obviously that's gaining traction nationally and in different outlets. It's just, can you get it across the goal line? That'll be the biggest thing. So hearing different things from different people, it's almost already looking like it's like you talk to some agents, and like I said, you talk to agents, and obviously you're going to get one side. People are already almost acting as it's done. You're still going to have to work through some of those semantics. And until the ink is dry, especially obviously this is a podcast show catered to Virginia Tech fans, I think they should know better than anyone. Until it's done, it's not really done. And you don't even have to look too far to last week's game on Friday. Going to be so mad when we hired the Memphis head coach. I think Ryan Silverfield is a very, very quality head coaching candidate. This is someone who spent a lot of time. I mean, this last offseason spent time with Dan Lanning, picking the brain of, like, this guy. You talk to recruits, they have such great organizational infrastructure over there. I know, whatever. Fuente fatigue. It would be the same with getting Franklin from Penn State and Pride. But this is someone who has only heard very, very, very positive, resounding reviews from, like I said, I think I even mentioned on last show, a prospect who visited both Memphis and Virginia Tech, someone who's dealt with both, obviously talking with people in the personnel world, talking with people in the coaching world. I think that'd be a very quality candidate. I think he's going to have some pretty big suitors too. I haven't heard as much smoke about him as of late, but I don't think that would be one where you throw your hands up. And like I said, if it's not Franklin and however this shakes out, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's asinine for me to say it right now because people are going to have their opinion one way or the other. It's really going to matter a lot more about the staff that you fill out. The head coaching position is so important and wears a lot of hats in this day and age, but it's so important to get the staff right. So critical. And you don't have to look far back to Brent Pry, but I think that's the last thing I'll say on that. Do we know if an offer has been made to Franklin? Yes, an offer has been made to Franklin. The ball is in their court. That's why I keep sort of framing it like that. But yes, an offer has been made, met pretty much all the stipulations. It sounds like of what was asked. And now, not a little gamesmanship, but maybe a little bit of gamesmanship going on. So we'll see where it goes with that. What type of NIL budget increase is going to be needed to land Franklin? A significant one. And I think you feel pretty confident on that side once that announcement gets made. Obviously, like I said, as I just went on a rant about staffing, you feel pretty confident to tap some wells in the donor base and some people that have maybe been a little turned off by the recent structure of the AD, people in the AD, and different things. Obviously, with some changes coming down the pipe, and obviously a massive change at the head coach position, be a little bit more inclined to donate. So they're expecting a groundswell there. They also have some people who have, sounds like at least verbally said they'll step up to the plate, but it's going to be a pretty significant increase as opposed to what they've been dealing with. So I know it costs money to win. It costs money to lose. A lot of the times, head coaches like to make it, well, if you supported me, like this new person's going to get supported. Maybe I had success. It's just sort of how it goes. Sometimes people just need to see an actual change before change actually happens. But yeah, that's sort of where that's at. Hope I answered that. How is there legit knowledge into the search of the committee signed NDAs? I mean, there's a lot of elements to this. A lot of people, even externally to the committee, have signed NDAs. Doug Bowman, obviously the FOIA guy, he's taking a lot of smoke over on vtscoop.com this last week just for some different takes and things. He's leaned into the heel roll well. He actually FOIA'd what the NDA or whatever the committee member signed. If you've seen a legal NDA document, it doesn't look anything like that. So that's a whole weird situation. I think there's more to that with some people coming out in public and speaking and sort of stepping in it publicly. Maybe even the person who wrote that NDA document, of just how that was framed. Now, I think there are NDAs in place. Are we actually going to see those? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, once you throw that to the agent side, you're not going to make an agent and their clients on NDAs. So yeah, the agent world talks very loud. A lot of that will trickle out, obviously very intentionally from one side to try and gain momentum, swing different perceptions and things. So there's always going to be stuff coming out, and that's maybe the biggest leak point. But yeah, if not Franklin, then who do you think will be the next head coach? As of right now, I mean, things are pointing that way. That's a good question. It's October 29th. So right now, the only non-working head coach that I would expect them to go after is James Franklin. So there's a lot of other people still working, coaching a head football team. So if it's not him, I'll recircle back with you about November 15th and we'll talk about it. So we'll see. Maybe Kolby's Corner is going to be going off the chain for the rest of November and into signing day. Who is running negotiations? Yeah, like I said, I think it's really important that the committee has done a good job. But I think when you talk about mostly negotiations, it's those board members of Ryan McCarthy, Pearson, obviously Rock's involved there. I know people are saying Whit Babcock is involved. He's not involved in these negotiations, even with agency or whatever, just his connections. It sounds like from some pretty good reporting, sounds like he's not really involved, and some changes will be made pretty swiftly over there after obviously the head coach is made, as we're changing some things on the athletic side. I know there's different people saying different things, but that's what it sounds like right now from people in the know. So we'll run with that. Would be such a big drop off from Franklin if we can't get him. FM saying that. I think there's quality candidates all around. Franklin obviously immediately is the splashy hire. Virginia Tech can realistically make this cycle. It will open the door most likely to the fastest turnaround just talent wise on the roster. And that's sort of what Virginia Tech needs. You need to quickly and rapidly elevate the stature of the program on a national basis. And James Franklin does give you the best opportunity to do that. There's still obviously a lot of very quality candidates out there that can turn things around. And these rebuilds are going to move so much quicker now with the transfer portal. It's really who can most effectively utilize that with the funds they have, with the connections they have. And I mean, it's crazy. The last couple of days talking to different recruits, the relationships James Franklin has, it's very different. Obviously, for the longest time covering recruiting for Virginia Tech, a lot of these battles going against Penn State, and to see what different players, even not on the Penn State roster, but had relationships with him, still say about him. It's pretty impressive to say, and how far that stretches in this region. So it definitely would be like a fall off in terms of stature of what could potentially be done, or just initially, but there's other people that could still make their marks. See, this is why you need to be on the VT Scoop message board. This is why right here. Doug Bowman has taken some arrows this week, obviously, trying to be playing devil's advocate, and rightfully so. And a lot of the points are valid. A lot of the points, I think, fall on deaf ears of people who just want it signed and done immediately. But Sexton and the agency, and any agent, is obviously going to drag things out. It's October 29th. Time is on your side. Now, for Virginia Tech, if they want to operate in a different clip and say, okay, if you're not coaching now and we want you now, this is our terms. This is where we're at. If you don't meet us here, we're going to pivot. That's fine. It's just who's going to hold that hard line. But yeah, the threads are flying over there. You click off for an hour and you're already 10 pages behind. So, but yeah, go check out vtscoop.com to get the skinny on that. What does the timeline look like for a James Franklin hire? Appreciate everyone jumping in the live chat. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to answer a few more of these. We've been running some deep shows, but yeah, we'll try and answer all the questions we can. The timeline for Franklin, if it is to go down, it is going to be, and I feel like I'm a broken record if you've been here, it's going to be sooner than later. Within the next week, most likely, if it is to go down. It just sounds like Virginia Tech side is not going to be willing to go back and forth, sort of play patty cake, draw their hard line in the sand. They feel like they've come to the table with everything that was asked of, and a fair duty to mitigate clause in a way, which is also an interesting stipulation, because now that an offer has been made with whatever market value, he has to pretty much, he can't sit the year out for the Penn State buyout. So if that's at Virginia Tech or Arkansas or Auburn or Florida State, wherever it is, he's going to have to take a job now, because I believe in the buyout clause stipulation that now that he's been given offer that meets or above fair market value, he has to work to obviously offset that clause. So that's a really interesting nugget there. If it's going to happen at Virginia Tech, I would err on the side sooner than later, just based on what we're hearing right now on October 29th. Things can change. Things move very quickly. A week ago, a show looked a lot different than what it looks like right now. Just based on what we're hearing the last week, that is where we're at. Stay tuned into vtscoop.com. Subscribe to the channel. We'll have the latest updates. But as we speak right now, that's what a timeline looks like. How quickly will student sections empty out this weekend with Hollow Weekend? Depends on how ugly the games get. I think it's a very, very quality Louisville opponent coming in. They do a lot of really good things. Obviously, Friday being Halloween, Thursday night before, it's going to get pretty hectic all around. And Saturday is going to be no different with people dressed up. So I thought Friday was a solid showing, but this Saturday could get tough with the time slot and everything. Would you say there's a certain aspect of the offer that could prevent a deal with Franklin from getting done? No, I honestly feel, just based on what we're hearing, that a lot of the stipulations or maybe the hangups or different feelings were met. And there was maybe not fear or different things. And like I said, things are moving very quickly. But at the same time, need to let some things play out. It sounds like there was some question marks and things. and those questions or assurances were shored up and definitely made sure before you went to the table seriously. And it sounds like they came to an agreement, and now, or whatever, they met what was asked of, and now maybe things have been walked back just a little bit on different things, trying to squeeze out a little bit more. That's just sort of what it's sounding like. So I don't think there are certain aspects of a deal that would hold it up from getting done. It's just semantics of, obviously, it's October 29th. Time is leverage, and they're playing the long game. Well, as the overall sentiment of the deal, yeah, like I said, done in about a week. Does Franklin Camp supposed to give a decision on a certain day next week? No, not a certain day. And like, it's not me saying that like, oh, a press conference is there or whatever, how that shakes out. I would just say they're going to want to drag things out. And if Virginia Tech, I feel like they've drawn a pretty hard line in the sand saying, look, this is where it's at. We've met you where you wanted to be. Don't kind of string us along. And if not, like, we are ready to pivot off. Like, yes, it's obvious, like, and you're not really fooling anyone at this point. You're a top target. You've maybe lost that leverage, but if you wanted that to be known, you feel like you've come with a competitive offer and everything that was asked upon. It's pretty much all you can do. So now the ball is in their court, and they're pretty much said it's going to be sooner or later, or we're going to have to move on and change our approach. And you'll have to figure out from different jobs that are probably less attractive for you as well. So both sides are obviously coming with bargaining chips. It's just not who blinks first, but how does the deal get done? And I think the timing of it will be that week. So that's sort of the thinking on it. Some good comments here in the live chat. After Chesney and maybe Shane, who do you think VT would also be looking at? Great question here. And this gets a little bit murkier, as I said. Like, Shane obviously came up a lot, and then once they shifted to Franklin, it's a lot of that. You heard a lot of Chesney. I would say Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz is a name that's coming that I'm hearing at Duke that I think an offer would potentially be made to if Franklin doesn't come to fruition. That's a name. I would also say watch some of those G5 coaches. A lot of those prevalent names, but I would say Manny Diaz is one to watch. Kolby, do you think Franklin will bring back Prize DC? No, I do not think that will be a staffing choice there. Any quarterbacks you think will hit the market we may have some shots at if we land James Franklin at coach? That's going to take a while to get back used to. That's so ambiguous, sort of arbitrary. Like, so many guys are going to make decisions. Like, there are guys on Virginia Tech's roster, decisions that they would make right now on what they're going to do in that window in January would change if James Franklin's the head coach, if Manny Diaz is the head coach, well, I'm not even going to speculate on that because people will run with that. Whoever enters now, there are some guys that you keep tabs on and see. Obviously, Franklin's recruited a lot of quarterbacks coming out of high school, so they have relationships with them. But I think right now it's a little bit too early for that, especially before guys have entered or completed the season. What do you think of the Halloween helmets? I think they look sharp. It's always good to try and keep the fan base engaged and coming back and looking for something new. The maroon look always looks classic under the lights. So I think it's good just to switch it up anytime, especially for an event like Halloween Weekend. I think that looks solid. Is it true that Franklin will bring his staff and around 30-plus players recruits with him? I don't know if you're going off like a tweet or a report of this, or I know there's a lot going around, people speaking in certain fact. Keep everything with a grain of salt. I feel like that should almost be inferred upon when dealing with coaching searches and things so ambiguous like this. Either way, there's going to be an exodus of players leaving Virginia Tech's roster, and there's going to be a massive influx of players coming into Virginia Tech's roster. If it is James Franklin, you're probably going to see a larger depth come from the Penn State ranks, and you'll probably see some of his staff from Penn State obviously naturally come with him, which makes sense. As a sitting head coach or a recently fired head coach, he's going to have a much closer connection with people as opposed to, I keep using the Jimbo Fisher example, but obviously someone who's coming up for jobs, or an Ed Orgeron, who is not directly tied in right now. They still have trees and different things, but maybe not as tightly connected to some players. So, I mean, how many guys did they bring in last year from the portal, like 30 and 50 with high school? And that was just in a normal year. Now, they had a massive transfer portal overhaul, but I would not be shocked to see that figure or even a larger number. With James Franklin or another head coach, you're going to see a massive overhaul of players either way. And Franklin, obviously, yes, he's going to utilize his coaching staff tree to bring in the best staff he thinks he can. Thomas Wilder back in the boat with the Franklin hire. Perhaps we bring Matt Outen back home too. Thomas Wilder, yes, as 100%, very, very receptive if it were to go that way. Hearing intel there, and definitely Outen as well. Outen obviously committed to Virginia Tech, flipped his commitment to Penn State, has a great relationship with Franklin and Fontel Mines, however that shakes out. But Wilder, yes, definitely Virginia Tech. I mean, Wilder still has a great relationship with Virginia Tech, obviously committed to Virginia Tech for a reason. It's just the instability there, but Franklin definitely changes things for those recruits, and it'd be really big to get a guy like Matt Outen to come back via the portal, and for Virginia Tech as well. If you can keep Wilder in the class, shore up some of the trenches, obviously a 4-star guy, that would be really big. Do you think he'll? I think that, do you think he will try and bring his OC and DC with him? I'm not exactly sure what staffing, but I think that is going to be the most critical things. If the Franklin, this is all under the assumption that the Franklin deal gets across the finish line, staffing will be the biggest piece to monitor for honestly any head coach hiring across the board. But I think staffing is going to be so critical. I'm not sure. I mean, what does Ricky Ronnie make the jump? Moorhead. There's a lot of different options. I don't think it'll be Kotelnicki. Who the DC will be, I'm not sure. You have options there, but that will be something to watch. Kolby, are you still in college? Yep, going into my senior year here at Virginia Tech. So, yep, still here. Or I guess in my senior year. Let's check this out. Is there any consideration to hiring Franklin because he would be able to be in seat immediately and start recruiting right now versus most? Yeah, I mean, that's a really big part of it, and that's sort of why Virginia Tech's like, look, we're not going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs and wait, because obviously that is the advantage. You talk about something of the effect of that Miami recruiting weekend, it opens a really big door, and you have people like, you can't get too ahead of yourself. And like I said, I don't want anyone to get too ahead of yourselves with the way we're talking. A lot of this is still obviously waiting for a deal to get done, but you look at the opportunity that presents to you if you can get him involved. Obviously not coaching the team, but still getting him involved in that side and building out the roster and evaluating in the building who you can see next year and building out your talent pool, getting the staff all set up early so you can know what you're working with. That's going to be really big. That is a massive consideration and something that's very attractive to a place like Virginia Tech to get a head start, especially when the timeline is so abbreviated. Now, you don't have the spring transfer portal window at your disposal. You have to get that first week of December for high school and then that 1 week or whatever, 10, 14 days in January for transfers. Now, if you bring in a guy like James Franklin, you're already going to be at an advantage because of the relationships of other players that have played for him and that he can bring with him, supposedly. But yes, 100%, that is a big selling point, and why I think Virginia Tech wants to try and get this across the finish line as soon as possible. But great question or comment. Aller is out of eligibility, I believe. See a lot of questions about Pry coming back as DC. I highly doubt that James Franklin brings back Brent Pry as defensive coordinator. I've answered this a couple times. Who's the first person they pivot to if Franklin deal falls through? Chesney. You're still hearing the Chesney name. You heard Manny Diaz come up in a conversation a couple hours right before I hopped on here. I think those are a couple people to watch. And then those G5 names, there's a couple that are sort of off the radar G5 names that you hear. You don't really know the validity to it right now. Not all their bags are – they don't have all their eggs in the Franklin basket, but right now that's obviously where all the attention is turned to. I would say even if this fails, it sets us up nicely and prepared for other candidates in ours. Yeah, I would say 100%. I know people were casting stones, even myself, at the committee and some of the different rollouts. I think just based on everything, I mean, if this were to get across, obviously, an outstanding job to land someone where you come to a consensus top target. A lot of people still feel very positively about it. I think there's just that fatigue from, like I said, this is tailored to Virginia Tech, a Virginia Tech podcast. People understand how things can get so close to the finish line and halted just barely. So I think those are the only reservations, but things are still sounds like they're moving in a positive direction. Possible for Franklin to have us in the ACC championship game and good bowl within 2 years. I mean, anything is possible. I feel like Kevin Garnett or Jason Tatum saying that. But I mean, anything is possible, especially in this transfer portal era. When you turn around and fired a head coach, it used to be a multi-year rebuild. At least you're looking at, like, immediately you're looking down. The transfer portal has rapidly changed that, with coaches being able to move and update their players. Like, you don't have to look far to Indiana and Kurt Cignetti taking a lot of that JMU roster and turning Indiana around pretty much immediately going into the college football playoff. So people will get held against that standard, which is probably an unfair standard because, I mean, that's to get to the real top. But I think it's definitely feasible when you look at the ACC slate, just everything going against them, the budget increases for the recruiting staff, the personnel department. A lot of things are falling into place for them to be competitive. And yeah, and then it will just be about the talent, the coaching, and the plays on the field. But that obviously sets them up in a much more advantageous spot than they've been the last decade, honestly, since Beamer. No matter who the head coach is next year, you want to keep Montgomery. He's a great coach. I think he's done an amazing job keeping people rallied. Like, I mean, what a great win for the seniors currently on the roster, that Cal game. Just a really great job. When you get down or you're up 10 and then you fall down 20-10, it's really easy for people to mail things in or just ship it off. What an incredible job to get them fired up out of the half. I think he's done an amazing job. I think he's worked himself into getting more looks from different programs as well. If he's not retained as Tech, I don't believe he will be, but he's definitely put himself in a good spot in a very tough position. So that's been definitely very impressive to see. I'm going to answer a couple more here and then wrap this up. Appreciate all the support. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to get to do this. It's been a ton of fun. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you enjoy this, share the show with a friend. Yeah. How much of a setback would it be if they land Franklin and need to pivot, or if they don't land Franklin? I don't think it'd be a setback. I think they understand that's a possibility. So you're sort of prepared for all these scenarios. You don't want to be in that situation where you have all your eggs in one basket and you're really, really way behind the 8-ball. I got to find it different. But yeah, I think Chesney will have success at a program. But for right now, Virginia Tech's honed in on Franklin. Grunkenmeyer is a really strong quarterback you could bring over. Yeah, he's obviously stepped in for Aller, another quarterback up there, but that could obviously potentially be an option. So I see, wrapping up with a couple questions. With the new structure, will the GM have hiring power for Brooks, or have hiring power for different coaches, and who gets retained? I think obviously that will still come down from the head coach. If the GM is going to operate a lot of the football side, I think a lot of that, especially if you bring in a guy like James Franklin, this is someone who wants to have his fingerprints all over his staff and really take ownership of that. It'll be interesting to see. You hear some things about the athletic CEO side of they're getting closer with a hire there, and obviously shifting some things around in that department. But that'll be really interesting to see once you get Franklin and how quickly they move on those hires to build out that support staff. If we land Franklin or not, it will tell us whether Babcock. I guess we'll see. Cool. Well, with that, sort of wrapped up most of the questions here at 9:20 on October 29th. Went about 50 minutes. Appreciate all the support, everyone. Hopefully gain some valuable insight into hearing some of the background on James Franklin. I mean, we'll go into more after the game on Saturday. I'm sure could have a emergency show over the next couple of days. We will see. I don't expect anything particularly imminent, but if it is going to happen, it will be sooner than later. So make sure to stay tuned into vtscoop.com. Subscribe to the socials on X at Kolby_Crawford. We'll keep you in the know with anything there. Updates on the channel, but vtscoop.com with all the changing insights, because it's raining now. It'll be sleeting in a second, and things change in a blink of an eye. So appreciate all the support. It really, truly does mean the world seeing this. All the feedback, seeing people in person on game days on Saturday, it truly does mean the world. Very appreciative for everyone that tunes in here on 8:30 on Mondays and Wednesdays. It's been a ton of fun. So can't say enough to that. Very, very grateful. With that, I'm going to get some dinner here. Appreciate everyone that hangs out in the chat. We'll see you next time. Check out vtscoop.com. Take care of yourself. Have a great weekend, since we won't follow you up with you till then. Enjoy some college football. And yeah, God bless. See you next time.